This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland. Watch it now on Prime Video.
It's More Money with leading economist Steve Moore. Now, here's your host, Steve Moore.
Welcome back, folks. I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday afternoon. Appreciate you taking time to get educated and about economics, about some politics. We've been having some fun this afternoon as well. We're on WABC and stations around the country from 1 to 3 p.m. every Saturday, and we are live and in color. We'll try to squeeze in a few of your calls at the end of the show. We've had some amazing calls. I've learned a lot from you, and that More Money show hotline is 1-800-848-9222. But before we get to that, I'm so thrilled to have on David Asman. You all know David. David, I call you the hardest working guy at Fox News.
I don't know about that, but I'm happy to work whenever I'm working there.
I know, and it's so funny because I know, we typically call you the utility infielder because yes. you can play any position, and you're on so many of the different shows, hosting and doing a great job. And so, by the way, how are you doing, David?
I'm doing great. It's 70 degrees. How can you not be doing great in Manhattan if it's 70 degrees?
Well, yeah, I know you're doing great personally, but you and I and our buddy Larry Kudlow and some others are getting a little nervous about what's going on with the stock market. Yes. And Trump, I'll just set you up with this. I was just looking at the numbers, David, and, back in mid-February, Trump was just riding high. I mean, his popularity rating was as high as it had ever been. The economy, people's attitudes about the economy were as high as they've been in 20 years, and everything was going great. And then all of a sudden, he just switched the dialogue to tariffs. And I know people have very different attitudes about tariffs. There's an internal, but that's my point. Is one issue, David, that unifies us all as free market. And I'm not even use the term Republican, just free marketeers, people who are pro-business and pro-growth, is tax cuts. Now, the tariff issue, we debate this tariff issue all the time, and some of our friends support it, some don't. But that's an issue that more divides us. I want Trump back on the tax cut message.
Well, and this is something we've talked about. Because of the fact that Trump came in with such a mandate and then grew that mandate even more. The first couple of months he was, well, I shouldn't say first couple, it's only been 2 months, but the first couple of weeks he was in, the satisfaction with the work that he was doing was great, bringing in trillions of dollars of foreign business to come and set up shop in the United States as a result of his promises to lower the corporate tax rate to 15% if you manufacture here. So there's all this goodwill and good news coming in, and the markets were going great. And of course, once again, we got 54% of American taxpayers have some form of money in the stock market through their retirement plans, whether it's 401k or IRA or whatever they have. So people are invested in the markets. It's not like, it's just for the rich people. So everything looked good, and then the tariff talk really talked down the market and really got people worried about the future. And you see the consumer confidence continues to go up. Part of that is also because inflation is not licked yet. It's still sticking in there. It's not certainly not as bad as it was under Biden, but it's still there. So there are all these headwinds. I just don't know why he didn't do a winning program that would put more money in people's pockets, that would get more, particularly small businesses, going by extending the tax cuts, including, no tax on tips and overtime work and the other things that would really affect blue collar workers. And then after he nailed that down, so God forbid there's no tax increase at the end of this year, which will happen if we don't extend those tax cuts. Then you can, the final 2 years, you could really hone in on the way we're getting ripped off by a lot of the foreign countries that have 100% tariffs on our goods, while they can ship stuff in here practically without paying any tariffs. So, put first things first, get the economy roaring with these tax cuts, and get money in people's pockets with individual cuts even more. And then you can focus on, the last couple of years, your legacy will be getting that trade stuff.
Better trade deals. Right. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think you just nailed it, my friend. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because you and I think alike on this. And so now I'm going to ask you another thing, David, related to this. I'm writing a column now where I'm basically saying I think that there has been an overreaction on Wall Street to the Trump policies, and in terms of the slide in the market values, which are down about 10% over the last 3 weeks or so, because and this is just a hypothesis, so I may be wrong about this, but if you look at the tariffs, in isolation, those are probably a little negative for growth. But if you look at all of the other things, I mean, an article in the Wall Street Journal today on A2, deregulation hits new high water mark under Trump. Yeah. I mean, that's a big deal, right, David? I mean, that's $1 trillion of savings. You've got what's going on with Elon Musk. He says he can save $1 trillion over the next few years in terms of outrageous and wasteful government spending. Yep. You've got the energy policies that will drive down the cost of gasoline at the pump and our energy costs that we pay. So all of these things. And I'm only, skimming the surface. The fact that he's got the border. Just
to throw in one more, as I mentioned before, the trillions of dollars. I think there's at least $2 trillion that's come in from overseas already. Just
exactly.
In the first 2 months.
That's right. So my point is, I wonder if this is, the media. I mean, Larry Kudlow and I were talking this earlier on his show. I mean, you read the newspapers, you'd think we were in a Great Depression or something. And so I just wonder if you think that this is maybe a little bit exaggerated, because I think, if Trump does all the things he says he's going to do, I think 9 months from now, you buy stocks today, I think you'll be very happy. But I'm not a stock picker, so.
Yeah. I mean, the point is that there are other things pulling down the market. First of all, the market was very, very overpriced.
That's true.
Leading into the euphoria that took place after the election really moved in. It was even before he became president, we saw the markets go up. And then remember, there was all that euphoria about AI, that AI was going to be do for economies around the world what the technological revolution did 30 years ago. So it's, and that might have been a little overblown, and then it was kicked in the pants by that DeepSeek news from China, a lot of which was just BS coming from China, where they were exaggerating about things that some investors bought into. So there were other things pushing on the market for a sell-off, and it was kind of a perfect storm for a sell-off when you threw the tariffs into the situation. Yes. However, having said all that, I do think that there is some reckoning for exactly what's going to happen. With regard to the tariffs, there may be some short-term pain on that, even if things work out in the end as Trump hopes they will, with more manufacturing increased here in the United States. There will be some short-term pain in that. But the main thing is, this just really reinforces the absolute need to, as soon as possible, please, President Trump, focus all of your attention for the moment. You got immigration, incredible job on immigration.
Yes. Right.
That's another whole thing that he has succeeded in just in 2 months. But you got some of the basics down. You set the stage for these tariff talks. Right. Focus now all of your attention on getting a tax extension deal done, because a lot of these idiots in Congress, and forgive me, I'm talking about Republican idiots here. There are some Republican idiots who still believe that tax extensions are going to cost money, even though tax revenue has increased double the amount of inflation that we've had over the past 4 years. So
yes, it's amazing. In fact, you had a great tweet on this that got picked up widely. We use that in our hotline, and it goes out to 100,000 people every day, just showing that the revenues are like up 20-30% since we did the tax cut. So there's no revenue loss. The idea this is going to cost money is really outrageous. I wanted to ask you, just to pivot to another related issue, David. I've seen news reports, and you never know whether these things are accurate or not. Insiders in the White House say this or that. You never know. These are just made up stories because they're unnamed sources. But that Trump and the Republicans are looking at potentially raising the corporate tax rate and potentially raising raising the individual income tax rates, which, I almost fell off my chair when I read this. Republicans are supposed to be cutting tax rates, not raising them.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, the latest of these that he would, when he came into part of the 2017 tax plan, this very well, but just because you were part of making this happen. But the top tax rate went from, what was it, 39.5%? 39.6 to 37. Down to 37. Yeah. So, and despite I shouldn't say despite, because you and I would say because of the fact that the rates went down, there was a burst of economic activity. Yes. People at the top rates took their money out of these tax dodges, whether it was buying gold or putting money in Cayman Islands or whatever the heck it was, and invested it here in the stock market and invested it in small businesses, whatever it was. And those investments grew to the point where people were hiring more, and we had this increase in revenue. And on the corporate side, above that in terms of scale, the corporate tax rate cut down to 21%, which was an enormous cut from where it had been.
Right, it had been at 35. Yeah.
The largest increase in revenue since the 2017 cuts was in the corporate rate, from 200 and something $billion in revenue up to over 500 billion. It was a 158% increase. 158% increase in revenue when rates were lowered. So if they were to raise rates, they say, "Oh, we need to raise rates, so we'll bring in more revenue." It's just the opposite. It's exactly the opposite. If they raise rates, they're going to lose revenue because people will not be investing as much in economic activity. And that's just the way it's happened from the beginning of time. People want to save money or hide money if it's going to be taxed. And that's, the rich people are the ones who can do it best, as our audience knows, that they know where to put money where it's not going to be seen by the tax man. So bottom line is, first of all, this story, I think it was Axios that came out with the one on Trump raising the top rate. It's either a bum story or Trump is getting some very bum advice from somebody. And I think it's the first. I think it's a bad story. I think it's either sourced to some career bureaucrat or it's, parts of it are just supposition rather than hard journalistic evidence. So I'm hoping that's true because, you think of who's working in the White House, whether you're talking about the Treasury Secretary or the chief economist there, Kevin Hassett, they're supply side folks. They understand that you get more revenue when you lower rates and make it cheaper to do business, and because the businesses grow so much that you actually get more revenue. They understand that, and I think they would strongly, vehemently be speaking out right now if any of that was true.
Good point. Great points. And by the way, David Asman is my guest, and what David just gave you all is a tutorial on something called the Laffer curve, which is exactly what you were describing. That Arthur Laffer, who's my mentor and your mentor, and I think you got to know him first at the Wall Street Journal many years ago. But he is famous for saying sometimes when you raise tax rates too much, you get less revenue, not more, for all the reasons that you just described. Why is that so hard, David? We have the. By the way, we have the history.
The evidence is in. It's time and time again. It's been proven by administrations going back to just after the tax the tax code was instituted, when we got the Internal Revenue Service. That in the 1920s was the first time that tax cuts or tax rate cuts came in and proved that you actually get more revenue because of it.
That's true. Yeah. Well, David, we're up against a hard break. I appreciate, you're coming on and educating our folks. We need to get you talking to the White House as well. David Asman does an amazing job on Fox Business News and Fox News. You see him all the time, always giving great advice.
Greg Kelly here with an urgent retirement warning. President Trump's return is set to usher in a new golden age, but growing trade tensions and China's ruthless attack on the dollar have rattled the markets. That's why Warren Buffett just dumped $133 billion in stocks. And so too have Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, and even Jamie Dimon, CEO of the world's largest bank. That's why thousands of informed IRA and 401k savers are now shielding their savings with gold. And the experts at Colonial Metals Group are the only folks I trust to help you to do the exact same thing, especially now after Rich Dad Poor Dad author Robert Kiyosaki warned of a coming market crash. So visit freegoldguide.com/Kelly or call 800-655-5186. You'll get a free gold guide on how to bulletproof your wealth with gold tax-free. Plus, see if you qualify for a free home safe and as much as $7,500 in free silver. Once again, that's freegoldguide.com/Kelly.